Imagine a world where the grass towered over your head, where the trees scraped the sky, and the very creatures that roamed the land dwarfed anything you've ever seen. This wasn't some fantastical realm of myth, but a very real place not so long ago. Picture Patagonia at the tail end of the Pleistocene epoch, a land sculpted by ice, where megafauna reigned supreme. But beneath the breathtaking vistas and dramatic landscapes lurked a silent gauntlet, a constant, almost invisible threat that would make mere survival a brutal, unrelenting struggle. Forget charging saber-toothed cats, or even the bone-crushing bite of a giant, short-faced bear. Your biggest enemy in this lost world wouldn't be fang or claw, but something far more insidious. A perfect storm of environmental factors, interwoven with the sheer scale of the colossal beasts that dominated the ecosystem, that would stack the odds against you in ways you can scarcely imagine. This is the story of why, in the age of the giants of Patagonia, 24 hours might be all you'd get. Official history often ignores what it cannot explain. If you want to go beyond textbooks and analyze the evidence, subscribe to the channel now. Here are 5 topic headings, focusing on the specific promise of the title, 6 Why You Wouldn't Survive, 24 Hours in the Age of the Giants of Patagonia. Part 151, The Hyper-Arid Paradox. Patagonia, even today, is a land of stark contrasts. But during the late Pleistocene, this duality was amplified to a deadly extreme. The very factor that allowed these megafauna to thrive, the abundance of grasslands, was intrinsically linked to a crushing aridity. Imagine a landscape perpetually teetering on the edge of drought. Rainfall would have been sporadic and unreliable, locked away in the massive ice sheets that still gripped the Andes Mountains. This created a hyper-arid environment away from the glacial valleys, where the competition for drinkable water would have been fierce and unforgiving. Finding a reliable water source wouldn't just be a matter of luck. It would be a daily battle against the elements and the other inhabitants of this megafauna-dominated world. You would be competing with creatures that could detect water sources from miles away and whose sheer size allowed them to dominate any watering hole. The struggle for hydration would be constant, pushing your body to its absolute limit. Dehydration would rapidly set in, clouding judgment, sapping strength, and making you vulnerable to every other threat lurking in this lost world. But the aridity presented another, equally insidious challenge: the lack of readily available fuel for fire. Fire, for early humans, was not just a source of warmth and light. It was a vital tool for cooking, protection, and signaling. In a hyper-arid environment, finding dry wood or other suitable fuel would be a constant struggle. Without fire, you would be exposed to the elements, unable to properly cook food, and incredibly vulnerable to nocturnal predators. The lack of fire would strip away one of humanity's most powerful advantages, leaving you exposed and defenseless in a land ruled by giants. The Patagonian paradox of immense grasslands fueled by scarce rainfall created a landscape where survival hinged on finding and securing water and the ability to create fire. The odds would be stacked against you from the moment you set foot in this lost world, where the very air seemed to conspire against your survival. Predator threats, giant carnivores and mega scavengers. The hyper-arid environment and the constant struggle for resources weren't the only factors conspiring against you. Patagonia, during the age of giants, was teeming with predators. Not just any predators, but colossal carnivores and mega scavengers perfectly adapted to hunting and consuming the largest creatures on Earth. Imagine encountering Arctotherium, the giant short-faced bear. Towering over 10 feet tall on its hind legs, this wasn't your average bear. It was built for speed and power, capable of bursts of incredible velocity across the open plains. While primarily a scavenger, Arctotherium wouldn't hesitate to use its immense size and strength to steal a kill or even take down live prey, including, potentially, you. Its bone-crushing jaws and massive claws would make short work of any creature caught in its path. Then there was Smilodon populator, the largest of the saber-toothed cats. While perhaps not as massive as Arctotherium, Smilodon was a formidable predator in its own right. Its incredibly powerful forelimbs and long saber teeth were designed for one purpose: to deliver a killing blow with surgical precision. They likely ambushed prey, using their immense strength to wrestle their victims to the ground before delivering a fatal bite to the throat. Avoiding these apex predators would require constant vigilance and an understanding of their hunting patterns. But the threat didn't end with the large felines and bears. Patagonia was also home to a variety of massive scavenging birds, like the Argentavis magnificens. With a wingspan exceeding 20 feet, it was one of the largest flying birds ever to exist. While not a direct predator of humans, Argentavis and similar mega-scavengers would have been drawn to any sign of death or weakness. Imagine being stalked from above by these colossal birds. Their shadows a constant reminder of your vulnerability. Any injury, any sign of fatigue would mark you as a potential meal. The skies, as well as the land, were hunting grounds. These predators and scavengers, combined with the harsh environment, would create a constant state of fear and anxiety. Every rustle in the grass, every shadow in the distance would be a potential threat. The need for constant vigilance would be exhausting, both physically and mentally. Sleep would be a luxury you could scarcely afford, knowing that danger lurked in the darkness. In the age of giants, survival wasn't just about finding food and water. It was about constantly evading the attention of creatures far more powerful and better equipped to survive than you. Extreme weather and environmental hazards. The challenges wouldn't end with predators and the constant need for sustenance. Patagonia during this epoch was a crucible of extreme weather and unpredictable environmental hazards. Imagine relentless winds, stronger and more persistent than anything you've ever experienced. These weren't gentle breezes, they were howling gales, unimpeded by forests or significant topographical features, capable of stripping the warmth from your body in a matter of hours. Exposure would be a constant threat, and finding shelter from these winds would be paramount, but incredibly difficult in the open grasslands. These winds also carried another danger: dust storms. The arid conditions and lack of vegetation cover would create frequent and intense dust storms, blotting out the sun and reducing visibility to near zero. These storms wouldn't just be unpleasant, they would be actively dangerous, capable of causing respiratory problems, eye irritation, and disorientation. Getting caught in a dust storm would be a terrifying experience, a desperate struggle to breathe and maintain your bearings in a swirling vortex of sand and grit. Beyond the wind and dust, the glacial activity that shaped Patagonia presented its own unique set of hazards. While the massive ice sheets may have seemed distant, their influence would be felt throughout the landscape. Glacial meltwater would create unpredictable flash floods, turning normally dry riverbeds into raging torrents in a matter of minutes. Navigating these waterways would be a gamble, and any attempt to cross them could be met with disaster. The ground itself would be unstable in many areas, with the risk of landslides and mudflows always present. Even the seemingly benign aspects of the environment could turn deadly. The intense Patagonian sun, unfiltered by a depleted ozone layer, would pose a significant risk of sunburn and heat stroke. The dry air would wick away moisture from your skin, leading to rapid dehydration. And the constant exposure to the elements would take a heavy toll on your body, weakening your immune system and making you more susceptible to disease. In this land of giants, even the smallest environmental challenges could quickly become life-threatening. Food and water scarcity. In a giant fauna ecosystem, water, the lifeblood of any ecosystem, would be an exceptionally precious commodity. The arid climate meant that sources of fresh water would be few and far between, likely concentrated in scattered oases or along the unpredictable paths of glacial meltwater streams. Finding these sources would be a constant challenge, requiring an intimate knowledge of the landscape and an ability to read the subtle signs of water availability. But even finding water wouldn't guarantee survival. Competition for these limited resources would be fierce. Giant herbivores, like the titanosaur and macrauchenia, would need to drink vast quantities of water to sustain their massive bodies, and they would likely congregate around any available water source. Approaching these watering holes would be fraught with danger, as predators would also be drawn to these areas, waiting for an opportunity to ambush the vulnerable. Imagine the tension of approaching a muddy pool, knowing that at any moment a smilodon could erupt from the undergrowth, or a territorial arctotherium could charge to defend its access to the water. Food, too, would be a constant concern. The sparse vegetation of the Patagonian steppe would offer little sustenance for a human. Tough grasses and thorny shrubs would be difficult to digest, and the lack of edible fruits or roots would further limit your options. You would be competing with a diverse array of mega-herbivores, each adapted to exploit the limited plant resources available. Simply finding enough calories to fuel your body would be a daily struggle, and starvation would be a very real threat. Even if you managed to find a source of food, it might not be safe to eat. Bacteria and parasites would thrive in the warm, humid conditions around water sources, and any contaminated food or water could lead to debilitating illness. Without access to medicine or proper sanitation, even a minor infection could quickly turn deadly. The Age of Giants wasn't just a battle against predators and the elements. It was also a constant war against invisible enemies lurking in the water you drank and the food you ate. Lack of shelter and protection from the elements' shelter, or rather the profound lack thereof, would be another critical factor working against your survival. The Patagonian landscape, particularly during the epoch of the giants, offered little in the way of natural protection. The vast open steppes, while visually striking, were largely devoid of caves, dense forests or other natural formations that could provide refuge from the elements. Finding a safe haven from the relentless winds, scorching sun, or sudden downpours would be an almost impossible task. Imagine attempting to construct a makeshift shelter using only the materials at hand. The sparse vegetation would offer little in the way of sturdy building materials. Thorny bushes and tough grasses would be difficult to manipulate and would provide minimal insulation. Even if you managed to construct a rudimentary lean-to, it would offer little protection against the powerful Patagonian winds, which could easily tear it apart in a matter of minutes. The lack of suitable materials would leave you exposed and vulnerable, constantly battling the elements. The absence of natural or constructed shelters would have a cascading effect on your overall well-being. Without protection from the sun, you would quickly succumb to heat stroke and dehydration. The intense Patagonian sun, unfiltered by a protective ozone layer, would relentlessly beat down on your exposed skin, causing severe burns and accelerating water loss. Similarly, without shelter from the wind, you would quickly become hypothermic, especially during the colder months. The constant exposure to the elements would weaken your immune system, making you more susceptible to disease and infection. In essence, the lack of shelter would create a relentless cycle of exposure and vulnerability. You would be constantly battling the elements, expending precious energy in a futile attempt to stay warm, cool, or dry. This constant struggle would take a heavy toll on your body, weakening your defenses and making you more susceptible to other threats. In the Age of Giants, the absence of a safe haven would be a death sentence, a constant reminder of your vulnerability in a harsh and unforgiving land. So, next time you're complaining about your commute or a long day at work, just remember the giants of Patagonia. Imagine trying to survive in a world where everything, including the wildlife, was scaled up to such an extreme degree. It really puts our modern-day challenges into perspective, doesn't it? A truly humbling thought.